All right, we're live. There's Corey, Matt here. We have Ray and Judy. We're going to talk how to cope with Parkinson's disease with this amazing couple. And we're so looking forward to this one. All right, hope you enjoy the show. Okay, on in just a minute or two. All right.
So far, so good.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be fun.
So far, so good.
Once we get going, then it's like the motor, you know, with the cold
That's
car
it.
and the engine starts going.
Start off a little.
Here we
that
go.
makes me nervous.
Here we go.
Makes me calm.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. This is where we talk about the ins and outs of family life. It might be about your kids, maybe yourselves, or even our elderly parents. We tackle these topics and we try to navigate you through it all. My name is Matt Del Vecchio. I'm a specialist in free retirement home search and senior transitions. And I'm here with my co-host, Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. Hello, Corey.
Hi there, Matt.
Oh, you know, I've been excited for this show coming right up. We have an incredible couple. You know, we have very good guests. We have doctors and professionals. Well, today we have a real life couple that we're happy to have in studio, Ray and Judy. Ray was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 16 years ago, believe it or not, and they're still coping, still thriving. You're going to want to hear their stories and how they're navigating through this in their lives, and they're both smiling here looking at me, so we know they're happy. So Corey, I couldn't help, no one could help but noticing the flyers and the publicitats and everything else getting thicker, and Black Friday I thought it was a US deal, and it is definitely here in Canada, and quite frankly driving me nuts.
Well, if you're not a shopper, for sure. It is unbelievable that Canadians have piggybacked on top of this Black Friday business, and with the holidays coming up, you a shopper?
No, I'm not a shopper. I'm a last minute guy. And, you know, you say Canadians, I think it's the retailers. You know, they're just milking this as much as they can and then taking advantage of it. But Cyber Monday is tomorrow. I think I'm becoming more a Cyber Monday guy than a Black Friday guy, where I can sit on the couch and do a little shopping. And I think that's certainly the way to go.
Okay, well.
And what about you?
I think I'm braver than you are, and I do go out to the malls, and the shoving, and the pushing, and the fighting. I hope I didn't hurt anybody.
Oh yeah, some of the videos that are out there, it's unbelievable how people react. Look how much money you're saving, Corey.
That's right. That's what I keep telling my husband.
Right, doesn't work. Oh boy, what do we got going on in the second half?
Well, in the second half, we are going to talk about a term that most of us know and I know I'm acutely familiar with, which is the term the sandwich generation. I know I'm living it. I believe, Matt, you're living it as well. And it's not always so easy, although we are very blessed to have parents that are still alive and grateful to have that, and to have our wonderful children. Well, some of it can be quite challenging. So in the second half, we're going to hear from author, blogger, and family specialist Kenny Bodanis. He's going to be in the studio to talk about, number one, the challenges of the sandwich generation, but also included in that a discussion on how to talk to your children about your aging parent, and especially when that aging process is not going so easily, or the parent is not well.
Yeah, and he's gone through it himself personally. Kenny's a great guy. He brings a unique, funny, witty approach to it, so we can't wait to have him. That will be right after the 4:30 news. So let's get right into it. As I mentioned, we have Judy and Ray in studio with us. And just to give a background, despite being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 16 years ago, quite incredible, Ray and Judy are role models for so many of us about how to live life to its fullest. Ray actually wrote an incredible article, which I read, called A Celebration of Parkinson's Disease. I believe that was posted on the Michael J. Fox website back in 2012. That, Corey, by the way, is posted on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. You need to read this. Very, very
well worth reading.
Inspiring. So, Judy, Ray, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being with us. Let's go back 16 years ago. living normal lives, and then you get the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. So tell us, what were the feelings on what was obviously quite unexpected at the time?
Well, it took a year to diagnose because there's no quick test for Parkinson's. But still, it was a surprise when the neurologist, who was a very kindly man, diagnosed me. So it was surprise and sadness, but acceptance. And Judy was with me. She always.
I would say that when our doctor, I say our doctor because I feel like I'm with the doctor. So I guess first it was shock. It was overwhelming, devastation. We walked out of the office, I recall so well, and we just hugged each other and we cried because we just didn't know what lay ahead. We had no idea. We knew so little about Parkinson's, you know. So yeah, that's.
And then getting that diagnosis, now it's a reality. Who do you talk to? Who, aside from your medical team and help, family members, friends, who do you
I
tell?
talked first to the people at work that I worked with because they could see something was going on with me. But I've been very open. Anyone who's curious about why my voice is so soft and so slow, I'm willing to discuss it.
And amazing, and obviously life was turned, and I think you even mentioned it in your celebration of Parkinson's disease. You talk lawyers and accountants, and now neurologist is one of your terms, and it's so nice to see you, and I wish people, actually on Facebook we could see you here in studio with us, because it is inspirational. And I think a lot of people will be asking, what would a typical day be like for you?
Well, I have a couple of days of exercise classes at Cummins Center,
An amazing
which is
center.
a fabulous place. And I have Tai Chi on another day. And until this year, I was curling.
Amazing.
You put a Parkinson's guy on a slippery surface.
Wow. Well, you're brave.
He did wear a helmet.
Okay. Very
So,
good for you. Courageous.
Thank you. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed, and I'm Corey Serrata with Matt Del Vecchio, and we're talking with Ray, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 16 years ago, along with his wife, Judy, and together they are wonderful role models in relation to how to live life to its fullest, despite coping with a debilitating disease. Now, I know, because I know you're both from being involved in Cummings Center, I know that, so I know some other things about you. For example, that Ray, you underwent deep brain stimulation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Deep brain stimulation is like an electronic version of dopamine, but it's administered with two metal probes into the brain, two sides, because the right side of the brain controls the left arm and leg, and the opposite.
And we don't profess to be doctors or medical field, but obviously this was something that was encouraged to try, and 16 years later, obviously this has worked. Is it something that is done regularly, or is it just a one-time?
You have to be a candidate, so there's a type of triage that is done to determine. You have to be less than 70. I'm not a doctor, but you have to be less than 70 years old. you have to be in a situation where the meds wear off and you have good family support.
Okay, thank you. So I have to ask a question because people do not, again, I have an advantage. People do not believe this, but I know that the concern is, can you travel when you're diagnosed with some kind of condition? Well, at the end of the day, let's look at that. But first, we're going to head out to the CJAD newsroom for traffic.
Now an update from the CJAD traffic center.
I felt bad because I couldn't really
No, I know,
fill
and
out
we were
that
running
answer, which was sort of an
we
important.
were running out of time,
I
so
saw-
that's why I
I
had to
saw
do that.
this.
So
So I dropped a few things. That
no problem. I have to head downstairs.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you have to go to the washroom? You're good? Okay, I'm
See,
going to head
it's
down
not so
right now.
bad. Then we're going to do that, and then in about 4 or 5
Gee,
minutes.
I have all these notes.
Yeah,
I have to
tell
come
you.
back.
No, that's what I'm saying. Half the time when I do it, I'm like, I didn't say anything. I have to put myself on. But
When
they
your
put
happens
me on.
fast, drive
You
into
what?
Mr.
I have to
Luke,
press
conveniently
on. I don't
located
think
in
I
your
press
local
myself on,
Walmart,
but he
and
pressed
get
me
your
on. If I don't press
tires
on, I don't.
changed
My mic
today.
isn't
Mr.
on.
Luke,
Okay.
take any time
There you go.
for this
So it's not
help.
bad,
How many minutes?
Traffic and
So
transit every 15
we're gonna.
minutes
It's
on
going to be at
CJAD
least
800. Your next
3
report at
4
4:30.
minutes.
See, the fact is, like, I guess we were on for maybe 7 minutes at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because
Because,
that's
there's
yeah, oh, absolutely.
that,
Like I
and
said,
then
at the
you
end of the
guys
day, it's about
talk.
20 minutes. So we're going to talk
Throw out the
about
notes.
traveling. Yeah, that's exactly. We're going to talk travel. You're doing great. You're really doing it. See, it's fun. It's so fun. Want to do the news next? So we're going to definitely talk about travel and then maybe some of these other questions.
What practical advice would you give to someone who's newly diagnosed?
Yeah, that one I'd like to sort of when we're coming around to end.
I think that's a good one.
From Broadway, The Illusionist.
Well, okay.
John Robert acts that thrill and excite. Starting December 12th at the Princess of Wales Theatre
Oh, I
in
had a
Toronto.
good one.
And CJD 800 wants to
What is the
send
most
you.
difficult you had? What is the most difficult
Yeah.
thing to
Can I
cope
ask
with?
Hotel and residence in downtown Toronto. Stunning views and
Do you like
Okay,
that
so he's
question?
here, and he's going to stay out there until 4:30
Okay.
with his daughter.
Okay.
relaxing travel can be with Via Rail Canada. The smart
So I said we're
So,
gonna
how you guys
come
doing?
back.
Feel good?
They're
Hey,
great.
got it out of the way. Boom. Now.
You have to come back. I
Yeah,
don't
Oh, that's elevated. Okay, so I'm going to come back. Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
and
yes.
then I'll throw it over to you.
Okay, because I'm then picking up the question.
So we're gonna start
I'd like
with
to talk
discussion.
about. We're going to start with the travel, and then you can ask if you want about what's most difficult.
Pardon?
We're going to start with the travel.
Travel, yeah.
I'll pick that after you do your intro. I'll pick up the travel, but then you can ask
Do you
about
want
what's
to
so
talk about that?
difficult.
About
Most
what?
difficult thing to cope with.
Difficult to cope with.
Yeah, that's what I'll go with.
I will start
Okay.
large stress.
Yeah.
You can take
I can talk with that other person in the room.
It's good.
If he likes that. Okay.
MSRP on select 2017 Ram 1500 inventory. That's up to $15,000 in cash discounts. Visit GrandClearOut.com for details.
Come see what's happening at Catsier Cavendish, where convenience rules. You don't need to battle traffic. Everything you need for your family or home is here. Everything from fashion and beauty to life's essentials to health and entertainment. Get it all done in one
And you're gonna
place
ask me
and then
a
relax
list of
over
few
a
things,
bite to
and then
eat
you
in
ask
the
how
bustling food court. And
we
don't
can
worry
talk
about
a
your
little bit
car.
more
There's
about,
plenty of
how
parking.
you've been
Catsier
navigating.
Cavendish, where it's always been, in the heart of Côte St. Luc. CatsierCavendish.com. Life Unrehearsed
Here we go.
on CJD 800. Brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
Well, an incredible song, Your Love by the Outfield. You know, that song is dedicated to Gord Fairholm. Gord, a good buddy of mine, very close family friend. He unfortunately passed away this past week at the young age of 50 years old. Far too young, salt of the earth guy. Our thoughts and prayers are with his wife Lisa, his children Lauren and Ryan, his brother Brad. Hang in there. We give you strength and courage. In fact, we've started a GoFundMe account for Gord and his family called Gord Fairholm Memorial Fund. A lot of you know Gord. He was a pillar in Dollard baseball and just an incredible man. So Gord, we're all thinking of you right now. Now, Corey, let's head back to another incredible couple. And you've been hearing Judy and Ray. And Ray, talk about courage. Here you are. Yeah, your voice might be a little slow and slurred, and you're in front of everyone here live with us and going for it. And very, very courageous. And thank you for being with us and Judy as well.
Thank you.
But thank you. Corey, you threw out a teaser question. I cannot... Actually, I know what they're going to say, and I can't believe what they're going to say about travel.
Yeah, I know. I freaked you out when I told you this when I met Ray and Judy. A lot of times they're involved in, we mentioned earlier, Coming Center and programs, but they miss them because they travel. They travel a lot, and this is so impressive. So could you please tell us about your extensive itinerary and how you're doing that?
Well, I feel really blessed. We love traveling, and we've been continuing to do it. We just came back from 3 weeks in Portugal 3 weeks ago.
Wow,
and then this year as well, we were in the Baltics as well. We've been to the Galapagos Islands and the Amazon, and it's all been just fabulous.
So it's great. It's unbelievable. I have never been to those places. But how do you do it when you have potentially a debilitating disease? How are you managing?
One thing that we've done over the last number of years that's been very helpful is that we get a wheelchair. When we go on flights, I arrange ahead of time that there's somebody there with a wheelchair to pick us up when we arrive at our destination, get us to the luggage, and move us along. And that saves Ray a lot of energy with the walking and the crowds and everything like that. So that's been excellent.
I just had to accept being in a wheelchair. That was hard at first.
And then I guess, you get used to it. That's part of your itinerary. And it's more, I guess, the dignity factor in being able to accept that you're in a wheelchair, right?
Exactly.
And then does that pass? Do you get over that? I guess it's always in the back of your mind.
Well, I can see how much easier it is and easier for Judy if I have wheelchair support.
And people are so supportive and helpful, and they're just there for you in that situation. It's excellent. One other thing we try to do is we pick trips that are not the kind of trip where you get up every morning at 6, you have to pack your bag and leave and go to the next place. We take river cruises, and that way your house is always traveling with you. You unpack, you're there for 10 or 12 days, and that's your home. And it also gives me some freedom in that if Ray is tired one morning, he doesn't feel like getting off the ship, he can stay on it, and so he's at home. He's got food, he's got people. He might have a better time than I do. I don't know. Sometimes I'm a little jealous. So that gives us a sense of freedom that way, and an independence from each other. We can do different things on the same trip and both have a great time.
You know, what I found amazing, I mean, you were holding back on all the trips you did, and this isn't a situation where when you found out 16 years ago, let's go on a whole bunch of travel. You've been traveling regularly for all 16 years and literally traveled around the world throughout these 16 years. Very inspiring.
And I would say that to anybody who finds out they're in a difficult situation is to take advantage of where you're at now, because now is the best time of your life, and it's wonderful. So yeah.
You're listening to an amazing couple, Judy and Ray, talking about the challenges and thrills of living with Parkinson's disease. Now, on the challenging side of things, bringing it right back to the day-to-day activities, what would you say that are some of the more difficult things that you have to cope with on a day-to-day basis?
I find large multi-step tasks are daunting. Judy constantly reminds me that I have to take one step at a time and look at it that way.
Taking it in pieces and instead of looking at the big picture, which makes a lot of sense and makes it a little easier to navigate for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
On my part, I think Ray and I were talking earlier, and it's like living with another person. in a sense that Parkinson's is always part of your life. You know, I'm always saying to Ray, did you have your pill? When's your next pill? Do you want to have a nap? And Parkinson's just becomes that other person in the room.
Third person in the room.
Yeah, yeah. And you also have to change how you plan your activities in the sense that you can't go shopping and then go out to eat and then go visit a friend and then do the things you would hope to do. You can't just walk out of the door and have that kind of freedom. You have to plan your day a little more carefully.
Fair enough. And it seems like you guys are doing an incredible job of doing that and navigating it so that it works for both of you. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Sirota with my co-host Matt Delvecchio, and we are talking with Ray, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 16 years ago, and his wife Judy, and how they are navigating that process. I'd like to ask you another question. I sort of know the answer to it. Support. What kind of support is helpful for you?
Well, I've had all kinds of good support. From the neurologist, from the rehab center, Constance Lethbridge, from Cummings Center. But my primo source of support is Judy.
Judy with the big smile. And
Such a love story.
It really is good. And I guess that same question, that's from Ray's perspective. And Judy, what support are you looking for, or what have you found helpful?
Corey has been wonderful because Corey runs she runs a group for people, caregivers of family members who have Parkinson's or stroke or things like that, and it's a group of like people. Not everybody who has Parkinson's is at the same stage, so the caregivers have different needs, but we're all walking through the same path, and we all have the same needs, and it's wonderful to be able to talk about these things in that environment, a safe environment, and so Corey is our leader, and she's great.
I feel so privileged.
Oh,
go on. So I really, we thought this was such an important topic, and what a dynamite couple to bring on to share it. So how can you, or what practical advice would you give someone else who was newly diagnosed, and this goes out to Ray, this question, with Parkinson's disease or any debilitating disease, and of course also Judy as well, to their partner?
I think you have to educate yourself, especially with Parkinson's, where it shows itself in so many different ways. The medications are so different from person to person. There's the deep brain stimulation. I think education and support are two keys.
And you know, you exactly what you're doing. You're reaching out. It could be your own internal, just Googling, and then dealing with your medical personnel and support personnel and Cummings Center and those types of things are great. And now, Judy, from your perspective, what would you suggest?
I would say if you just find out, if you're newly diagnosed, to first breathe, take it slowly, try not to feel too overwhelmed, even though it is overwhelming, and be sure to ask questions, find out, get information, as Ray is saying, get answers, and remember that you're the same person you were yesterday. It's another day, and you can still do all the things you did yesterday. It is a disease, it will progress, it will change your life, but just try and work one day at a time and do the best you can and go on those trips.
Excellent words of advice. Well, Ray and Judy, thank you so much for being with us. Brave souls coming in here and talking about your lives. I know this benefit a lot of people listening today, so thank you so much.
Thank
Your
you.
article, Ray, an excellent article. It's up on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. Please check it out. An article called Celebrating Parkinson's Disease, and quite something.
there's no question that your attitude in life determines your altitude, and you are both a prime example. Coming up after the news, author, blogger, and family specialist Kenny Bodanis is going to talk to us about the challenges of the sandwich generation. He's even going to share some other strategies about how to talk to your children around issues like aging parents and other sensitive family issues. You really don't want to miss that. I know I don't want to miss that. But first, let's head out to the CJAD newsroom.
This is Luciano.
4:30 and 2 seconds. Perfect. You guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. Really, really good.
Thanks.
You know,
Yeah.
you're champs.
You were
It
so
goes by
good.
quick. Okay?
Thank you for the plug.
Well, thank you.
Maybe I'll get you more
Okay?
business.
I'm gonna. Well, I hope people will come and ask about the caregiver group.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a recording of the show.
Yeah, so what you could do is you could transfer the
Yeah.
file that we get,
Okay.
just email it to them. It's a file you'll have to download because it's a
So
heavy
you'll have a
file.
copy of the
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
And also
Right.
like Unrehearsed on, and you'll be able to watch it anytime.
I'll watch it. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I know
That's
lots of people are
frightening.
listening.
That's
Just
frightening.
before you leave, you have to wave
Oh,
goodbye
yeah,
to
okay,
Facebook
bye.
world. Okay?
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll
Thank you.
You have to set up
You're so wonderful.
Oh, that's a picture right
So
there.
you know, do you want a quick CJAD picture? I don't know if we can do it.
I didn't bring my phone.
Ooh, I have my phone.
More news including a warning about cold medications at CJAD.com. From the CJAD 800 Traffic Center in Mount Laser.
Driving there right now, the Mountains slow down Blackety back to Cary, eastbound at volume there from Rockland over to Iberville. Northbound to Cary delays now Van Horn up to the top. Southbound to Cary is slowing down to just about Cote St. Catherine. We do have those Kirkland closures to deal with up until tomorrow morning. Southbound to Cary and eastbound 20 accesses to eastbound Ville Marie, eastbound 136 do remain closed. You can't look at your phone while driving, so let ADT monitor your smart home so you can focus on the road. Visit ADT.ca today. Traffic and transit every 15 minutes on CJAD 800. Your next report's at 4:45.
From the Darmeville Weather Center, snow beginning this evening. We're expecting 5 centimeters with winds diminishing. Temperature steady near -2. Tomorrow, periods of light snow ending by afternoon, then clearing, expecting 2 centimeters.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad we got a picture.
Yeah, good. Kenny, you're going to go right here.
Super.
We're on Facebook.
I'd rather not. I
Okay.
think she'd rather
So-
not too.
You're going to go actually in this chair right here. Okay.
So you can use one chair for your stuff, Harper, if you want.
Yeah, if you want to turn this way, and you can put your books there. Okay, because we have the camera right here.
Under the category, because why not, I brought you each a book.
Oh, well, you know what? You might get a book in return.
I
Thank
have
you.
a basement full
I
of
have
them.
to tell you that I facilitate on my long list of things. I facilitate a support group for new moms.
Oh,
And
lovely.
so this is really interesting, and I also do a group for women who perinatal loss over miscarriage. So this is good. This is great. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, because we got about 2 or 3 minutes. I want to do a quick. Kenny Bodanis, you're on Facebook.
Oh, hi.
And we should show the book right here. Kenny's book.
The plugs have started already.
There we go. Want to do a real quick review?
Yes, sure.
And he's a pro, by the way, Corey. Like this is like second fiddle to him. He's been here, been there, done that. We're going to open it up. We're just listening in the background. We're going to open it up. I'll open it. We're going to do a little quick bantering, and then Corey's going to introduce you.
Perfect.
And then we're playing tennis back and forth,
Ready to go.
similar to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We got to do our resets every 2 to 3 minutes, and the only times this is the only signal that we do to you is slowly wrap it up later. Okay, 4:45 traffic, and then 4:56ish, 4:57 is when we're going to start wrapping it up at our end.
Perfect.
We're good to go. How was traffic?
Oh, it was fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. You have to flow through the, but it took half an hour.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
I Googled first the 20 to Champlain
Yeah,
exit.
that's
Walk
exactly
Center.
what we did. We're going to have to
I
do
don't
that.
think you have much choice, really.
Well, we've been doing this milk run all the way down Saint Denis or
Oh no, it's been
Yeah,
flowing and easy. It really took half an hour. I Googled first to be sure, so it ended up being
Well, thanks for making the trip. I know it's
I managed to push my dinner guest back to 5:30, so that helped.
Oh,
I'd love to have you earlier, but no.
Okay, I really need
Stephanie
to calm
gives her
down here.
regards.
Walmart.
Oh,
Save
there
money,
you go.
live better. While supplies last, some exceptional supply. Visit in-store or online for details. Thank you.
Black Friday is on now at Mazda.
So we probably
and
have another
the deals are
minute.
white hot with 0 financing payments for 3
Has your
months.
daughter ever been in
That's
the
right.
studio?
Not a
Yeah, she
single
has.
one
You've been here
sold.
before?
Oh,
You're also a
good.
pro,
Wow.
aren't you?
Free
Second
audio
time
and
in this very studio.
Plus, if you've got your
I
eye
think
on
so.
the
Yeah.
Probably.
Very
What
good.
show we on?
$47
Natasha's.
a week. Yep, just $47 a week with 0
I'm
now.
used to
Don't let
being
it go this week slip away.
interviewee, not the
Yeah.
interviewer.
Black
So
Friday
this is
different.
a
It's
whole
different.
until
new...
November 30th. 60-month lease
We
subconditions
picked a
apply.
couple songs. Actually, Corey picked a couple
Yeah.
songs after the news. Right here, there's a little song interlude.
See, because we're live all the time, I have to be careful with my sarcastic off-air quips
No,
now.
no, that's why we have
I'm
to
sorry,
say
we got in
viewers on
much trouble
Facebook.
also for that.
Once there's a microphone in front of you, you have to do that anyway,
Yeah.
but it even adds to it. When,
Yes. And I have to plug on my car, which is okay.
No, see, that's the charm of radio is lost.
Yeah.
Visit electroménagerlongueuil.com for selection, prices,
Where do you
warranty, and
practice?
delivery service, or visit
you
their
have
Longueuil
not.
or Laval store.
We practice that.
Life
Here we go.
Unrehearsed on
Here we go.
CJAD
We'll talk about
800. Brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
There we go. We do want to teach our children well. Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in free retirement home search and senior transition support. I'm here with my co-host, Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. Corey, you know what? That was an incredible segment. I know it might have been a little bit difficult to hear, but heartfelt, and talk about an amazing couple, 16 years living with Parkinson's disease and traveling like they do.
Wonderful role models. It's about you can. You know, there's an expression: if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. They think they can, and they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, off air, you could just tell their attitude is incredible, and then that's really getting them through the ups and downs of it. So I'm very happy with that. Now, this upcoming segment I've also been waiting for. It's you know, I think we're all in this kind of sandwich generation, aren't we?
No question about it. This one, not only am I excited to hear, but I seriously need a piece of paper and a pen. I gotta get my notepad. Gotta take notes while I'm listening to this. It's a good thing we play it on Facebook, our Facebook Life Unrehearsed, so that way we can review after, because I'm sure there's lots of information. It is absolutely my pleasure to welcome Kenny Bodanis to our show. Kenny is not only a parenting specialist and an author and a blogger, but he's also a caregiver and a son to a parent with Alzheimer's. And so his expertise in parenting, combined with the first-hand experiences in dealing with a family member that has a debilitating disease, is absolutely going to help us as we listen to your perspective on how to handle life transitions when they present themselves. So really, welcome to the show, Kenny.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Welcome, Kenny.
So I had an absolute first question. I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
But I would say the first one that I think about is exactly what we were talking about. I deal with grief and loss, and I have certainly my own take on how to discuss and share difficult information with children. How do we talk to them? But the difference with someone with a debilitating disease is that it's changing all the time.
Right.
So please tell us, how do you explain that to your children?
Well, first I think I had to reconcile it for myself, because I always feel as a parent you have to be comfortable with how you feel about something before trying to explain it to your child, because they're very perceptive and they'll find chips in the armor, right? Because they don't filter their questions and they don't censor themselves, so whatever you're going to get from them is quick and honest and off the cuff. So to start with, my answer would have been very different. I started dealing with this, I guess, really in April, in earnest. And my answer then would have been very different. Then I was couching it. I was saying, you know, your grandmother has to just be taken to the doctor. We think she's doing okay. Well, you know, it shouldn't be too bad. She should be getting better. Then after a while, I realized for myself, look, this situation is permanent. This situation is in decline. And they're understanding that, okay, we haven't seen her in a while, and when we did see her, she looked very different and she was behaving very differently. They're intelligent. Kids are very perceptive and intelligent, so I started to be more and more honest. I go, look, She's suffering from a disease that affects her mind. She's not really the same person she used to be. The way she perceives time is a little bit different. She might not remember last week or the week before that. So, try to be yourself and be your charming selves when we go to see her, but understand that if she gets a little bit upset, that's okay. And that's part of what's happening to her, and it's not because of you. And it might be a little bit upsetting. It's important, I think, to tell them in advance. The visit might be a little bit upsetting. And that's okay. And it's okay to feel that. And it's okay to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And we're going to stay for a little while. And if we have to leave early, we'll leave early. And that's okay.
Open communication, I think, what it comes down to, and being honest and with your children. This is Life Unrehearsed. You were listening to Kenny Bodanis, author, blogger, and parenting specialist. I'm Matt Del Vecchio here with Corey Sirota, and we're talking about some of the challenges of a sandwich generation. Kenny, you fit right into that category.
I feel like I'm in the sandwich.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because the bread gets a little tight at times, and you're doing the best you can. Certainly in my business life, working with a lot of adult children, trying to help mom and dad find transition, you see on their face the challenges, but one big factor that is constant. I'm Italian, it's in our blood. The Jewish race, every single race, we got to deal with the guilt card. And, we feel guilty when we just can't be there. But
always. But
you can only do so much. So please, for all of us that are feeling guilty, what should we do?
I've talked a lot about this with a lot of people, including people working with my mother and psychologists and psychiatrists. And it's tough because it is so ingrained in you, right? It's sort of an analogy is like a string, right? So picture a string attached between 2 points. If you pull on just one side of it, only one side gets tighter. Same thing for the other side. When you're in a sandwich generation, that situation, someone's pulling from the middle. So both ends are being pulled on at the same time. And you feel that you have to fix it. And it's this feeling of helplessness. And what I've learned is that people's response to feeling helpless is to grasp onto whatever they can. And I finally started to understand it's okay to feel helpless. And if you don't protect yourself and create a shell and give yourself strength to go day to day and prioritize what's important, you'll be ripped apart. You really can't do everything for everybody all the time. And that's why a hospital exists, and that's why the specialist exists, and that's why the nurses exist, and that's why if you're lucky enough to be able to afford a caregiver or a companion, that's why they exist. And sometimes you just can't be there. And sometimes if you don't feel like picking up the phone because it's ringing and you just got home and it's supper time and your kids want to spend some time with you and your spouse wants to spend some time with you, it's okay to not answer the phone. Life will go on. It is not a domino game. There are not consequences to every little bit of inaction. You have to learn how to protect yourself, prioritize, and understand that you will survive. And the longer you do that, the more comfortable, I won't say it becomes easy, but the more comfortable you become with the idea of it. The more comfortable you become saying to yourself, okay, you know what? It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. What you're saying makes so much sense. I always use the analogy of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first in the airplane. Exactly. And that's really what you're speaking about is self-care. If you're not okay, how can you really be helpful to anybody else? So what you're saying is so true. I want to flip it to the other side, which is the person who just doesn't want to admit or acknowledge that whether it's the frailty of their parent or the challenge that they're having with their kids, the whole concept of denial.
Right, you mean denial from the child or denial from the parent?
Yes. Really, I mean, yes. We can speak about it maybe with both sides.
That's interesting because we're 4 kids in the family, and so a couple of us sort of picked up on things a little bit earlier than the other couple picked up on things. And you raise your hand and go, look, I think something's wrong. And they're like, well, really, she's always kind of been that way. And they might be right. So you're second guessing. But after a while, listen, here's what I'm going to do. Baby steps, right? How about this? I'm going to go with her to her next GP appointment. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to mention. And he'll probably suggest we do a test or 2 or 3. And if I'm wrong, then fantastic. Everybody's vindicated. And I will be more than happy to sit down with my bowl of Cheerios and say, you know what, you're right. But what if? What if, right? And humor me. And if you'll let me humor me, then I'll go from there. And it's the same approach I took with my mother. And she said, well, I don't really notice these things happening. I go, do me a favor. Let's go. Let's just mention it to your doctor that these are the things I've noticed. He'll probably ask you to do a test. And if he says I'm wrong, I'll apologize and say, you were right. I'll take a backseat.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. That's Kenny Bodanis, author, blogger, and parenting specialist, talking about his challenges of a true sandwich generation situation with mom with Alzheimer's and having 2 young children. I'm Matt Delvecchio here with Corey Sirota and Kenny. We're going to go for a traffic update here, but we're going to talk about one of the things we talked about off air, which is one of the biggest red flags that you think is out there. So let's first head to the CJAD Traffic Center, and we're going to talk about this big red flag. So, paying yourself first is how you said it. You know, one of the big red flags, now you talked about it a little bit here, but do what you can, readjust, pay yourself first. So I think it's going to be an elaboration of what you're talking about. Can you give some examples, real life examples of paying yourself first?
Oh my God, an easy one is I mentioned not picking up the phone. And also visitation. We're lucky because we have companions, but I want to be, because not everybody's in that situation. Is visitation is a big one too. Is you go to work at 9, you know, you're at this part of town, your work is in that part of town, the hospital's in this part of town, and you got to get there, but sometimes you can't. You know, so tell yourself, if I can do once a week, I'm going to do once a week. If I can, and that especially happened when she was at Sunrise. I said, I feel so bad. I was trying to go every second day because it's right down the street. What's the point of moving there if I'm not going to go visit? And Sabrina said, Kenny, we have people who come once a year. Because the reason you have a support system at a hospital or at a residence is so you don't have to be there all the time. And it was just like a...
This is really good, and in fact, based on that, I may just elaborate a little bit on the red flag, saying what is the biggest red flag, and can you get into a few examples of visitations that seems to be a big concern.
And I think the big question is, what are the real life consequences if you don't go? Ask yourself, what happens?
Okay, can you follow up with that question rather than you know, that'll be a ping pong. And so you want to repeat that? What are the... It's a great one.
It's a great comment. So,
I didn't go visit it.
So the biggest red flag, paying yourself first. And then I'll sort of...
I would say, how do you get comfortable with not visiting?
Yes, because I'd like you to say that. I actually wanted to frame it, if I can, in the full should.
Don't shit on yourself.
I say something
Stop
should on.
shitting on me.
That's my book. Someone I know it has a chapter called Stopping Should On.
Yeah.
So, what was the question? How do you get...
How do you get over the guilt of not visiting as often as you think you should?
I'll probably lead into it with the should, but okay. That is?
Just Elevate a commercial. It's a sponsor. So we're going to be on at around 4:50, and then at around, you'll see 4:55, 56. We're going to go into the second half goes even quicker because we want to make sure you have a chance to plug whatever you want to plug, and then we're promoting next week's show.
I'll mention again the book, the blog, and then ask you how people can get it.
Well, it's funny is I'm probably going to be blogging about this topic for the first time ever because I've sort of been whose story is it to tell, right? And then, but the more people you meet, the more like, oh my God, I went through that. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, that's why blogs exist, right? Yeah, to talk about yourself incessantly.
Talk a little bit about. Were we okay on the denial thing?
I think
tackled it enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll probably talk about. I thought you brought up a good point. There's probably 2 more questions. How do you deal with family or friends that are not really involved but are full of suggestions?
Well, that's what I'm going to lead into the should. That's the should.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the people telling you what you should do. Like tons of people.
Yeah. And then the other one about how we hold feelings back about our parents' issues when they really shouldn't.
Yeah. Like to them, you mean?
Like we tend to hold it back if we've got a mother issue or a father issue, and well, maybe even it's a little awkward and maybe even a little ashamed. You were saying. Maybe.
Oh, right, like
when you're talking to people.
You said we talked about you being in denial, but what about the person being in denial?
There we go. Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Del Vecchio here with Corey Sirota. We're very pleased to have Kenny Bodanis, author, blogger, and parenting specialist, talking about the challenges of the sandwich generation, whose mom has Alzheimer's and still has young kids and trying to deal with the day-to-day. And before traffic, Kenny, we talk about one of these big red flags that we had previously talked about. And can you tell us, what is this big red flag, and can you specify regarding visitations? Because I think there's a lot of pressure on adult children about how often and when we should be visiting.
It's so funny because that's another thing is when this first started happening is my sister and I were every second day. Are you going today? No, I'm not going today. And you live in one part of the city and you work in another part of the city, and the hospital or the residence is in a third part of the city, and your heart is racing thinking, look, I got to get out of here early. What about traffic? And it was finally explained to me that the system exists to give you a break. And you have to be able to tell yourself, today I'm not going to go. You know, today I'm going to take a day off, and it will be what it will be, and I'm going to let the support system take over for me, because I need to bring my blood pressure down, I need to bring my heart rate down, I want to be home for supper, I don't want my last thought of the day to be the image that I have at the residence or the hospital, and I need to give myself permission to really exhale. Just breathe deeply and slow down a little bit.
Paying yourself first.
Exactly.
When it gets too overwhelming.
So true. Absolutely true. At the same time, the world is full of all these experts that come out of the woodwork. Your friends, other family members, your neighbors, your employers, who are telling you what you should do.
Absolutely.
So how do you navigate that?
You know, it's amazing. You should examine sometimes the physiological reaction you have within yourself when somebody shoulds on you. It's just amazing. You'll come back and you'll make peace that, look, this is the situation. I visited her today. I came home and I'm okay with what's going on. It's beyond my control. Then the phone rings going, you know, went to see her and I think she needs sweaters. And your first reaction is, I gotta get to Costco. I gotta go get sweaters, and I'm not gonna be home for supper. It comes back to helplessness, because those people who are either dear friends of your mother's or distant relatives of your mother's feel helpless, and they're grasping at what they can to help to contribute to the situation. So I say, thank you very much. That's great. I'm going to write that down. Sweaters, absolutely. I'm going to make that a point. And it makes them feel a little bit better. It makes them feel like they've contributed, and you'll do it next week. Or you won't do it because you know she has 3 sweaters, and you know that she's not working out on a Stairmaster at the gym. You know she's lying in a hospital bed waiting for treatment, and 3 sweaters is more than enough for somebody at the hospital. All anybody wants is to be heard, to be understood, and felt like they're contributing, right? Because everyone's dealing with their own guilt that they live in Toronto and can't come, and they meant to keep in touch with her by email, but it's been a year. And that's okay. I get that.
They're trying to make their contribution, and they care. It's not like they don't care,
That's
but
right.
sometimes they might ruffle feathers without meaning to do so.
Absolutely.
And from your perspective, okay, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It becomes a priority issue now.
Again, it took me months to take it like a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
For the first few months, I was getting in my car and racing off to whatever store because there are no Kleenexes next to a bed.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, how do you, and as you talked about your children, how that conversation progresses, when you're talking to, well, not necessarily immediate family, but colleagues at work, or friends but distant friends, and they hear that something's not right with mom, and I would imagine you might not be completely forthcoming. And so how do you handle when you get those questions? Are you just forthright, or is it awkward, or what would you recommend with people in your shoes?
You have to be comfortable with yourself first. Again, my answer would have been different 3 months ago. But I've learned that sometimes it's harder to hide in a corner and whisper on a phone and pretend that everything is okay. It adds a couple of points to the blood pressure and a couple of beats to the permanent heart rate, as it is to just say, listen, this is what I'm dealing with. And I'll be very frank with people right now. I said, listen, I have to leave early today. My mother's in a bit of a crisis at the hospital. She's dealing with Alzheimer's. People are, of course, generally very sympathetic, and they go, I'm so sorry to hear that. And it's like, that's fine. I really appreciate that. And it's not a state of panic for me, but now you know. And I also find that as soon as you raise your hand and go, this is what I'm going through, inevitably somebody peeks around the corner going, oh, like my dad's going through that. Or I went through that. And suddenly, like with so many things that we're ashamed of and we keep hidden, well, what do you know? There's a community out there. If it's for addiction or weight loss or ADHD or Alzheimer's or cancer, it's suddenly when you stop whispering about it, you find a little community and you feel a little bit better and they feel a little bit better and you have a bit of a resource. Then people go, hey, how are things with your mother? You show up a little late, they're a little more understanding, but you have to be comfortable with that. But you have to ask yourself, if you're keeping it from people and it's eating away at you, who wins?
You know, you just summarized our show, Kenny. It's life unrehearsed, and life is
That's what I'm here for.
unrehearsed.
That's right. Yeah, you are listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Coy Serota along with Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking to Kenny Bodanis, who's an author, a blogger, and a family specialist. And he really is talking about the challenges of the sandwich generation, including how to talk to kids about tough issues. Now, I want to thank you so much because you've given us a wealth of information.
My pleasure.
And you are one busy guy, Kenny. You are, on top of all that we've discussed, you are the author of What Do I Do Now? What Do I Do While You're Pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
And you also founded a blog, mengetpregnant2.com.
Right.
This blog, as far as I understand, deals with many current social issues.
Right.
And so, how do people get a hold of you?
The easiest way is through my blog. It's Kenny at mengetpregnant2.com. And the email link is right there. So you can, I love getting emails and suggestions and feedback.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kenny.
My
Really,
pleasure.
really
Thanks for having me.
enjoyed you having here. And now, next week, you don't want to miss next week. Absolutely, we have two wonderful ladies, Claire Webster and Layla Zahabi. Layla, who runs the Steinberg Center for Simulation and Interactive Learning. I had no idea what that was. Corey and I did a tour a couple of weeks ago to prepare for this show. It is incredible. You're not going to want to miss that, about some cutting-edge projects to help caregivers. And we will also have an interesting take. Pam Wiener, laughter therapist and educator, will teach us why laughter really can be the best medicine. So thank you all very much for listening in to Life Unrehearsed. You can catch us every Sunday at 4 o'clock, and we're off to news shortly.
Flies by.
That's a wrap.
Kenny,
That's a wrap.
thank you.
My
Natural,
pleasure.
witty, amazing.
Anytime.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. So why do I know you?
We're going to wave a goodbye.
I feel
Why
like
do
I
you
should
know me?
Kenny,
know.
Corey.
Oh, bye.
Bye-bye to Facebook.
Oh, bye, Facebook.
See ya.
That was fun. You speak so well.
Thanks.
So hold on, I'm going to give you...